everybody, Steve here. Happy Friday. It's a sunny yet blustery one today. So, just doing a little video just to get on a few updates and give a lowdown on some books that I've been reading for the last few weeks or so. Instead of doing a textbook review, which I normally do on my Books and Other Stuff page on Facebook. But, this is just to expedient the time and just give a lowdown on the, regular novels and such that I've been reading. So, first up, I, a few weeks ago, finished reading Smiley's People by John le Carré. Now, I've read a few le Carré books in the past. This one is, hence the title, this is focusing on the famous le Carré protagonist George Smiley, who was portrayed by Alec Guinness in a BBC adaptation of this book and its prequel, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And then there's the theatrical version of Tinker Tailor, where Smiley was portrayed by Gary Oldman. So, and Smiley's People is actually the third installment in the so-called Karla trilogy, talking about Smiley's arch foe in the Soviet Union, Karla. And this is the third book in the installment. But I skipped ahead to this one. I read Tinker Tailor like a few years ago, but I tried to read the direct sequel, The Honorable Schoolboy, at one time, but that one's a little harder to read. It just kind of drags a little. This one is different. This had a better reading pace, a good story. Again, le Carré is the other side of the spy novel coin. You have Ian Fleming did James Bond, and his was all the action and crazy gadgets and such. Le Carré's spy stories, for those who are unfamiliar, they're kind of the more realistic spy stories, but they're still entertaining. So, I actually started reading this in October last year, and just finally got around to finishing it. Yeah, just time and such. But I got through a pretty big chunk of it when I started, and then eventually I finished it. So this was a good read. If you like spy stories, give it a whirl. Next, I was kind of revisiting an old series that I had been into a few years back by reading the first volume of its prequel. I read Book 1 of The Early Years for Ranger's Apprentice by John Flanagan. So this is one of two books in the prequel installment of Ranger's Apprentice. I started getting back into the series because I found out they did a sequel, so I figured I'd read the prequel first, since it's only 2 volumes. Because the 12th book in the original series was republished as the first book for the sequel series. So, I'm diving back into it. This is kind of more of a series that's for younger readers, but I very much enjoyed it, and anyone who likes fantasy will definitely like this one, no matter how old you are. So the book tells, hence the title, The Early Years, talks about Ranger Halt, who eventually becomes the mentor to the titular Ranger's Apprentice in the original story, Will. But this talks about how, but in this one, Halt is kind of more or less the apprentice these days, because this is where he starts in the Ranger Corps, along with his comrade Crowley, who eventually, in the main story, becomes the Ranger Commandant. So this is talking about their adventures in that time. It's very, very enjoyable, lots of description, and I'm definitely reminded of a lot of the little quirks from the series, like emphasis on strategy and tactics, and the fact that Rangers are very big on drinking coffee. So, it was nice to get back into this. So now, there's this one book that I'm currently reading, and I'm not quite at the halfway point for it yet, but we've got Fevre Dream by George R.R. Martin. That's right, folks, the Game of Thrones author. Now, this is a completely different story outside of Thrones, and it's, interestingly, it's a vampire story. It's set in the 19th century, and it's about a riverboat captain who is starting up his new riverboat business with an aristocratic sort, but there's a little bit of mystery as to his business partner's intentions, and it revolves around the whole vampire situation. There's a B story here that focuses on other characters who are vampires, and this one human guy who works for him, who has the interesting name of Sour Billy Tipton. And, it goes into that, and I think I just started getting to where the two threads are starting to intertwine. But I'm not even at the halfway point of this, but it's been a good read so far. It's it's a little, text-wise, it's easier to read than Thrones, because that's some small text. And, but it's engaging, it's enjoyable, very descriptive, and, yeah, it's been a pretty good ride so far. Learning a little bit about riverboat culture in those days, so that definitely changes things up a little. Now, as to where I first heard about this book, I first heard about it from the back credits from the second Dance in the Vampire Bund Dojin collection, because one of the collections they use the title Fevre Dream, and it's a reference to this novel. So I figured I'd give it a try. So yeah, that's where I'm at on the reading front. And in other news, I'm getting ready to do another fan art origins for my books and other stuff page. Putting up fan arts and such on Instagram. And then I'm taking the opportunity to announce a new segment I'm going to do on my books and other stuff page, which is going to be called Reader Retrospective. It's basically where I look at I review, it's like my regular book reviews, but I'm reviewing one that I haven't read in a while. Particularly, it's probably going to be more likely more graphic novels that I read in the past. The first one I'm going to do a reader retrospective of is Duncan Rouleau's Metal Men. I read this a few years ago, and I'm going to plan to reread it sometime and give it a review in the future, especially after learning that there is a Metal Men movie in the works. So, it'll be fun. So, thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for new posts on my page, Stephen Johnston's Books and Other Stuff, which you can find on Facebook. I am on Instagram at Stephen R. Johnston, all one word, and it's Stephen with a PH, just so you remember. And, stay tuned, and like and subscribe. Till next time.